Hi, friends. Today I wanted to talk about how difficult it is to find snacks when you have a food allergy. Now, this is something maybe you don't really think of, but making a main meal gluten-free or dairy-free can be actually quite easy. You just need to swap out the pasta or use coconut milk instead of cream. However, when you're used to eating cookies and biscuits, and cake for snacks, then finding alternative snacks can be quite a challenge. So, we've been dealing with food allergies for the past 10 years, and snacks are still an issue for us. I am always running short of things that I can offer my boys apart from fruit, and they just get a bit bored of having fruit all the time for their snacks. So, today I thought I'd try out some new recipes. These are things that I've never made before or only made a couple of times. And I wanted to just make them with you, tell you what I thought about them, see if I'm going to make them again. Some of them were successes, some of them were not. I'll let you know all about that, and obviously you'll have the blog post that goes along with this video over at candleinthekitchen.com, and I will link that in the description box. Here you can see me making almond milk. Now, a few years ago I did try and make this and it was not a success. My son did not enjoy it at all. I think part of the reason was that I didn't soak the almonds, or I didn't soak them for long enough, and I also didn't have a cheesecloth, which is what you can see I put the almonds in here. Now the cheesecloth means that I can get a really good texture for the almond milk, and now he absolutely loves it. Sometimes I'll put flax seeds in there as well, and they will give the almond milk an even more unctuous texture, which he enjoys. But even just the almonds, if I soak them all night and then mix them up in the food processor or the blender and then drain them out through this cheesecloth, that gives a really good almond milk, which can keep in the fridge for several days. So he's been enjoying that. Now he loves to make smoothies in the morning with banana and honey. Sometimes he'll add a little bit of cocoa powder too, and that's just a bit of a treat for them for breakfast or for snacks throughout the day. The only problem with almond milk is you end up with lots of almond pulp, but you'll see I've got a couple of recipe ideas that I'm going to show you later on in the video for how to use that up. This next recipe are veggie fritters. So these are completely carb free. It uses almond flour instead of normal flour. And I've just been grating up some courgettes and carrots. I mixed it with some salt and left it for a few minutes just so that all of the juices could come out of the vegetables. Now I'm putting them in a tea towel. You could also use a cheesecloth. And I'm going to squeeze out all of that liquid. Now this is really important because if you have lots of liquid in the vegetables, then you're going to get soggy fritters, which is not what we want. So squeeze out as much liquid as you can from these vegetables. This is a totally new recipe for me, and it has become a firm favorite for my boys. They absolutely love it. So I'm excited about making this more often. Once you've squeezed all of the liquid out of the vegetables, you put it back in the bowl, and then you're going to add your eggs, some almond flour, some coconut flour, and then some spices. And you can get the link to the full recipe for this over on the blog. Mixing this up takes a matter of minutes. It's so quick and easy, and it makes a really good lunch option too. The recipe I'm linking is from acleanbake.com, but I have made a couple of changes. I didn't put any onion in there, and I also have left out the chili powder. So I've got courgette or zucchini, carrots, salt, 2 large eggs. You can put fresh herbs in there. If I'd had some, I would have put those in too. But I did use some dried oregano, some granulated garlic, and some cumin. Then you've got the almond flour and the coconut flour, and you can substitute cassava flour for the almond flour if you have nut allergies. Now comes the more difficult part, and that is frying these. Because they don't have gluten in them, they don't stick together very well. So the solution I came up with is getting the oil really hot and making sure that they are well browned at the bottom. I think I used 1/3 of a cup measuring cup, maybe it was 1/4, I'm not really sure. So I dolloped that in the pan, got the pan nice and hot, dolloped it in the pan and pressed it down with the back of the measuring cup. And that was how I managed to get a good shape, not too thin, otherwise it will break apart. But you don't want it too thick either, otherwise it will have trouble cooking all the way through. As you can see, flipping these are quite a challenge. You do have to wait until it's really brown at the bottom and just flip it over the best you can. Now, I did make these again a few days later, and I don't know if I put less vegetables in or if I'd added more almond flour and cassava flour, but they were a lot thicker. The batter was a lot thicker and it was a lot easier to flip. So maybe experiment and try less vegetables, more flour, and see if that helps. Now we're on to a recipe that was not really a success. It's based on the Gap's muffin, but instead of using almond flour, I decided to use the almond pulp, and I added some cocoa to make it chocolatey because my boys absolutely love chocolate. I don't think I added enough chocolate in there, and I think it would have been better for me to dry out the almond pulp before using it. So I'm going to try this again and I'll get back to you. If I can make it work, then I will post the full recipe on the blog someday soon. For now, I wouldn't recommend making this with just the almond pulp straight from the almond milk. Experimenting in the kitchen can be quite daunting, and especially if you're somebody quite frugal like I am, then it can be difficult to throw food away. However, having said that, I have rarely had to throw food away because of an experiment that hasn't worked. And I think that you learn so much from trying new things, new techniques, new ingredients. It's all a learning curve and it's never wasted. So I would really encourage you to go ahead and try experimenting in the kitchen. You never know, you might find your new passion, like I did with sourdough. That started as a complete experimentation and I absolutely love it today. So go ahead, give it a try, and let me know what you're experimenting on at the moment. Here I'm making some strawberry gummies. I used the recipe from Don't Waste the Crumbs as my basis, but I did make a lot of changes. So I'm using 100% strawberry puree, and you saw me put the frozen strawberries in the saucepan, and they've been cooking down for a while until they're soft enough for me to puree them. I just tasted the puree to see how sweet it is, and it does need a little bit of honey to sweeten it. So I'm adding 1 tablespoon of honey into that strawberry puree. I think I put one cup of frozen strawberries in the saucepan. And I'm going to be adding 4 sachets of gelatin. So that comes to 24 grams. Now, I do know that this is not great quality gelatin, and I am on the lookout for better quality. It's kind of difficult to get it in France. I have looked on Amazon. If any of you know of a good brand of gelatin that I can get here in France, do let me know in the comments below. So in goes the gelatin and the honey, and I'm going to bring this to a simmer and let it simmer for about 3 minutes before I pour it into molds. Now, I don't have any specific gummy molds. I'm using some muffin molds I have that are star-shaped. I'm not going to fill them up by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just going to put a little bit in each one. And then that's going to go in the freezer for at least 15 minutes to set, and then it'll keep in the fridge for up to 2 weeks. This is an absolute favourite treat for my boys. Now we're on to the last experiment of the day, and this is almond pulp ricotta. This recipe is from wastefreeplanet.org, and it involves using leftover pulp from making almond milk. So you add the juice of 1 lemon, some olive oil, some minced garlic cloves, some oregano, paprika, maybe some green onions, some salt and pepper, to your fresh almond pulp, and mix it all up, and that's all there is to it. Now I will say this is really tasty, but my boys didn't enjoy it at all. I think the flavours were too strong. It didn't have the texture of ricotta, it had more of a hummus texture, so you could probably eat it with some carrot sticks or cucumber, that kind of thing, as maybe an aperitif for some adults. But I don't think I'm going to be making this again, not for my boys in any case. It just sat in the fridge and didn't get eaten, unfortunately. It's also not very practical as a snack because you need to have something else with it. I prefer to have a muffin or a fritter or something else that I can just pull out of the fridge and give it to them. But yeah, as I said, this was pretty tasty, not practical, and not really kid friendly. So give it a go if you fancy it. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't work for our family at all. So there you have it. That was my experiment for the day. I made veggie fritters, which we had for lunch and really enjoyed. I made cocoa muffins from the almond pulp, which were not great, so I'm going to have to make some changes to that recipe. Some strawberry gummies, which are always a hit in our house. And then we had the almond pulp ricotta, which was tasty but didn't work for our family, so I probably won't make that again. And then obviously the almond milk, which we are making several times a week and everybody is really enjoying. I hope I gave you some ideas. I hope I inspired you to experiment a bit more in the kitchen. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and leave me a comment below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!